A recap of Saturday's game, don't feel totally much different than I did after the game as far as what I saw on tape is really strong effort in all three phases all the way through. Some guys highlighted some really strong individual efforts. MVPs of the game were Thomas Zyros and special teams, hit all of his reps. Obviously had a very critical fumble recovery there on offense too to get the touchdown at the end of the game. He's done a very good job the last few weeks of stepping up. On defense, could have been a couple guys, but Judge Culpepper, I think, was very disruptive. Probably had one of his better games here as a Rocket. Continues to anchor that front in there in the A gap and does a good job making sure that ball bounces sideways. And I think our defense did a really good job containing a very good back and a good rushing attack on Saturday. Offensively, those two young backers, I keep calling them young. They're not young anymore, but they're getting their opportunities. Micah Kelly and Jacquez Stewart did a really good job running the football. Jock was our MVP and did a really good job making the safety miss and getting into the second level of defense and creating some explosive runs that really aided us. So happy with the improvement from week 4 to 5 when it came to that piece of it. We still got some room for growth there. We turned the page going to Northern Illinois, a team that's been a nemesis for ours for a long time, a game that I know means a lot to their program and as it does to ours. Week 2 of Mid-American Conference play, it's really an 8-week playoff, and here we are week 2 going on the road, and tough trip, and got to do better on the road than what we maybe done the first 2 weeks here in our first couple games on the road. So excited to get on the bus and get going, get out to DeKalb, and play a very competitive game for all 60 minutes.
Jason, what do you think of defensively? You were shorthanded at a few positions, especially in the second half. What do you think of the depth you kind of established and how those guys stepped up?
Yeah, I think that there's, we split practices in preseason camp, and to start off because you're only allowed limited hours per day on the practice field. So we split and we do a blue practice and a gold practice, and usually there's a distinct difference between the two defenses when you're calling the plays on offense. You see the first D line out there the first practice, and maybe sometimes it's the defense is always ahead of the offense to start practice out. So you see disruption, and then maybe you say, you catch your breath. Here comes the gold defense out for the second period of practice or the second practice, and there's not a drop-off, So I think, we probably got a good, preview of maybe what that was going to look like. Injuries are part of the game. These things happen often, too often, but they happen often. And, you have to be able to adapt and overcome because it's not, it's not like they give you a pass on Saturday. They're still going to come after you and try to score as many points as you can. But reassuring to see those guys step up and match and go in their moments. We lost Maxon on the opening kickoff, and Zach Ford then goes from nickel to safety, plays the entire game as safety, and plays really well. That then forces Andre Fuller to have to go in and play nickel, and all week long that guy's prepping and practicing and preparing to maybe think he's going to get 13 or 14 plays in the game, and he gets 60. So to see those guys step up in those moments and not miss a beat, very reassuring, and I think it speaks to the culture of our locker room and the culture of our team.
You mentioned the meaning of the Northern game. Obviously, the past decade, you guys have had some really big ones against each other. On a podcast over the summer, Rocky Lombardi mentioned that the first drill that they do in practice is called the Toledo drill, and said that you're their biggest rival. Like in this building, is that game? I mean, everyone knows Bowling Green is Bowling Green, but like in this building, is there an added emphasis on what Northern means?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to take any light away from what is 20 miles down the street from us here. But also you have to understand that each one of these games in the Mid-American Conference on the west side is a monster game. You have to – I described it like this to our team. You got to win the state of Michigan, and you got to then there's Ball State, Northern Illinois that are they want to kill you too. So you have to be ready to go each and every week. And obviously I think our guys understand the meaning of this one. It's really hard to go win there. We did it 2 years ago, but I think that was the first time in 12 years or something on the road in DeKalb to go win at their place. I know we beat them at the White Sox Park my first year, but winning there and taking that trip, it's a bus trip, it's a long bus trip, it's a difficult deal, and it's against a good team. And normally those games are late November games on a Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, and this is a little different vibe because this is Saturday and we're in October here, but very important game. I think our guys understand the meaning of this, and they understand what's at stake here.
You've been waiting for somebody probably to take over that running back one spot. Did you think that Jacquez Stewart maybe claimed a little bit more of that after that performance on Saturday?
I think we got into a rhythm offensively. I think that we got we got the 6 guys in the core blocked body on body, 7 guys in the core body on body, and the times that we were in open sets, the 5 guys blocked. And then, Jock and Micah both did a good job of getting into the perimeter. And, when there was an arm tackle there, an extra defender there, either making him miss or grinding through for a couple of tough extra yards. And those things start to wear on a defense. So if we can have that efficiency and then you still supplement the rushing yards with what the quarterback is able to do with his legs, it's 260 yards rushing in a football game in college football is really hard to do. So if we can do that each and every week, we'll have a really good chance to be successful.
When you went back and watched that first half, was that about as good as perfect as you could have drawn it up? And was that about as dominant a first half as you guys have played in a while?
Yeah, not perfect. We kick a field goal on the first drive where I think we should, be able to go down there and punch one in. The turnover down there in the goal line area was huge. Being able to give ourselves touchdown opportunities rather than kicking field goals in the red zone, I thought was a major thing, and always will be. And really, you talk about the second half as well, and being able to overcome some adversity there, giving up 2 block punts and still being able to finish the game off in a 4-minute situation. And the defense came up with a couple great stops. Deontay ripping the ball off the tight end was a huge play in the game, and being able to finish and play all 60 minutes, I thought was speaks to the the response of our team, maybe not some of the reaction.
Are those good, teaching moments when you have the big lead and then there's a little bit of adversity and then you find your way? Are those good teaching moments?
It's always teaching. It always is. It's all about that, and it's all about what parallels that we can pull from this game that we love to play and apply them to life. And sometimes in life you're going to get a punt blocked, and you wake up that the day does not look anything close to what you thought it was going to look like, and you have to be able to respond and move because people are counting on you. And no different in football, and these kids are living that each and every day, and I think it is a great teacher for what maybe life is like.
Obviously just Northern is good, that's part of the issue, but what makes it so tough to play there? Because it seems to be one of the toughest places to play in the MAC.
Well, they have a great fan base, they have a proud tradition, they have a great program, and they have good players, and so do we, so that makes it a big game each and every year. You guys talk about big game, and sometimes we don't say what that actually means. That's 2 really good teams that have really strong traditions. That it's really important to go play well and play really hard, and that usually means it's going to be a very physical game. That usually means that the margins are very small, and it's going to come down to a few plays that you got to do a better job of executing than what they do.
I wanted to ask you one about kind of state of college football. You see a guy like Paul Chryst, who's won 70% of his games, get fired. How difficult is it to be a Division I college football coach when everybody wants everything right away and they want you to win every single game? And how much appreciation you have for just coaches across the country from that perspective?
Yeah, I think that every situation is different, and I'm not in any of those locker rooms, so I can't speak on any of those. But, I think that, we're in a different fraternity that, again, this is not a 9-to-5 job. This is something that consumes your life. This is a lifestyle. This is not this is not just a career. And I think, you have to view it as that. And I think you never get into this profession if you don't view it as that. My concern is not wins and losses or how many it's not. Its concerns are these kids and what they're able to learn and what they're able to take from this program and how they're going to be able to apply that to their life someday. So, I'm going to be more concerned about that, buying into that part of it and continuing to teach and continuing to coach and continuing to work on that piece of it. All the other stuff, it takes care of itself, in my opinion.
Another kind of college football at large question. They're talking about next year, perhaps incomplete passes, the clock will run. What are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on making games quicker?
I don't know. I got mixed opinions, I guess, on that piece of it. I think that, I don't know. Are we always trying to fix something that isn't broken? I think that would be my first thought. The second thought is, there's other ways to speed up a college football game rather than changing the course of how the game is played. I think there's a lot of other ways to speed that up, and maybe some of those need to be looked at as well.
Coach Jamal McKinney from UT10 News. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on DeQuan Finn overall, how he's been playing overall if you were to evaluate this season up to this point, and just looking at his progression throughout his career at the University of Toledo, what stands out to you from his perspective as a leader and him on the football field?
Yeah, great question. Obviously very proud of his development and very proud of what he's become and how he's worked himself into where he's at. He's a self-made guy. He's a guy that sits in here and puts in extra time and effort to being a really good player. He understands what that takes and what that's going to be required of him. He's a very selfless person that tells himself the truth when mistakes happen. Most grown men don't like to tell everybody about their mistakes. He plays the most scrutinized position in sport. I think he embraces that to the utmost degree. Understands that there's going to be days where he feels like $1 million and other days where he doesn't feel like $1. So, and the attitude and the mood can't be the wave. It's got to stay as even keeled as possible. And I think he's learning and fighting through that and doing a good job with that piece of it. Obviously, he's a tremendous talent. He's got tremendous ability to run the football when he gets out and gets loose. I really appreciate the time, effort spent on becoming a good, complete quarterback. And I think that starts with leadership, and it starts with authentic relationships in the locker room. I think earning the trust of your teammates and gaining the respect of your teammates. And I think he certainly has that. We didn't have him for a practice last week during the week, and when he returned to practice on Wednesday, there was a different vibe out there. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about what your quarterback is. So he doesn't always see those things, and he doesn't brag and pat himself on the back about those type of things, but I really appreciate that about him.
So you kind of touched on his leadership a little bit right there, but if you could pinpoint one thing, what do you think is his best trait overall as a leader? If you could give your opinion on that.
I think that any leader's best trait is doing what you said you were going to do and being as consistent as you possibly can in that, and that's really hard to do. That's man's greatest struggle, in my opinion. That's really hard for anybody to do. So it's hard for you to do in your career. It's hard for me to do in my career, not alone a 19-year-old kid that's playing college football, and everybody wants a piece of him in every turn and every move that he makes. So that's sometimes a tough proposition for a young player and a young man. And I think that's probably what I would pinpoint as his best trait, being able to do what he said he's going to do, and even long after the mood, if he said it, has left him.
And lastly, what is one thing about DeQuan that maybe people don't know that you kind of observed behind the scenes, and how overall do you think he's done as far as representing himself both on and off the field here at the University of Toledo, just as an overall leader and kind of ambassador for the team and the program?
Well, like I said, you play the most scrutinized position in sport for a reason. When you're the quarterback, a lot of stuff goes with that doesn't go along with being the third corner or the backup defensive tackle. Like everybody sees your every move, and some guys are built for that, others are not. And I think we're talking about everybody puts a resume together when it's time to go get a job, and it's going to list all types of skills on there, what you can bring to an organization, and most of those are performance type skills. He's got a lot of performance skills, but the most important thing is he's got a lot of moral skills too. He's a great human being first and foremost. So it's easy for him to walk his natural walk and be comfortable in his own skin and represent this place in a first-class manner and our program in a first-class manner just because that's how he was raised.